Drummond Island Dogman, chapters 21 through 23. Chapter 21. The sleep was needed, and now the beast was hungry. He'd been up a good portion of the night hunting, and around noon he'd found a place deep in the woods where a tree had recently fallen, creating a place where he could hide, a place to curl up and sleep for a few hours. Now he was awake again, alert and moving. And hungry. Always it seemed he was hungry. But he liked his new home. His life on Drummond Island was much easier than his old life on the Lower Peninsula. There were fewer distractions and interruptions on the island, fewer noisy machines, and fewer people. Of course, having fewer people made his hunting a bit more challenging, but as in the past, he could survive on many types of food. Drummond Island offered various forms of food with miles and miles of unspoiled wilderness, places to hide, to be alone, undisturbed, and unchallenged. And when a human happened by, and the time was right, well then. He moved slowly on all fours. If anyone spotted him at a distance, they would have thought he was a very large deer, or maybe even a moose. A closer inspection would have revealed his canine wolf-like appearance. But no, not a wolf. He was bigger than a wolf, and way more dangerous. More dangerous because he had not only the cunning and instinct of a predatory animal, but the thinking capability of a human. Part dog, part man. Dogman. Throughout the afternoon he stalked near the highway, remaining hidden within the shadows of the colorful autumn leaves. Only once did he venture out to the road when he'd picked up the scent of a deer and spotted the animal dead on the shoulder of the highway. The animal had recently been hit by a car. His hunger satisfied for the time being, the creature returned to the forest to rest. But not for long. He was disturbed by the noise of a machine roaring through the forest, louder, closer. The creature slunk back into the shadows as the noisy, smelly machine passed by on a trail. It contained two small humans, and the beast picked up their scent even through the noxious fumes of burning gasoline and oil. But he did not follow. Not this time. He would wait. Time was on his side. It was always on his side. In the wilderness, in the cover of the forest, in the shadows of night, he was ruler. He was king. He was smarter, craftier, stealthier, and stronger than any human could possibly be. He could remain in the distance and watch without being seen himself, could hunt without his prey even aware of him nearby. Yes, time was on his side, and as the noisy, smelly machine passed by, he decided he would wait. This time. Chapter 22. The next day at school, it seemed like everyone was talking about Dogman. Of course, since there are only about 50 kids in the entire school, that's not very many. But as we were learning, other kids were hearing about or experiencing strange things. The night before, I'd shown Delaney the scratches on the shed door. She was puzzled and even a little bit afraid. I told her that I didn't think the scratches were from a bear, but they could have been a wolf. But we both knew better. My dad says he saw something big on Johnswood Road last night, one kid said. He said there was a big wolf snooping around a dead deer on the shoulder of the road. When he got closer, the wolf took off. That wasn't a wolf, another kid said. That was Dogman. My uncle says that Dogman attacked him last week, a girl said, and my uncle never lies. I rolled my eyes and didn't say anything. The girl who had spoken was the same girl who claimed her uncle had been abducted by Bigfoot last summer. The summer before that, he'd claimed an alien spaceship had landed in his yard. And that's how the stories went. Nobody had any real proof, nothing that would remove any doubt that Dogman was stalking the island. Nobody had any pictures or videos, only far-fetched stories that were at best secondhand. Still, I think everyone would agree that a dark shroud had fallen over the island. It was as though the community of Drummond Island was under the spell of a sinister shadow. Some unseen, unknowable force that had scooped up the island in its powerful hand, slowly closing its fist on us, the inhabitants. But the hardest part was separating fact from fiction. What was true and what wasn't? Even the articles and pictures Delaney had copied at the library weren't proof. After all, people make up stories all the time, and the journalists report only what they're told. They don't send out a team of investigators every time there's a wild report or a crazy story reported by some backwoods farmer or an old woman with an overactive imagination. That would spoil all the fun. The stories were much better if simply reported and let the reading public form their own conclusions. But as for my conclusion, I wasn't sure. I had no idea if there was some half-dog, half-man, half-creature living on the island, watching us from the shadows. I guess it seemed possible, but my common sense and appeal to reason told me that most likely there was another explanation. A wolf? Probably. That was the best and most logical explanation. It seemed to make the most sense. Wolves are real. Half dog, half man creatures aren't. Or so it would seem. Still, there was something else to consider. You can call it intuition. You can call it instinct or a gut feeling. Call it whatever you want. But something somewhere was telling me that there was more to this story than I was understanding. Something was telling me, whispering to me. Something told me to be on guard, to be watchful, especially when I ventured into the woods. I tried to push this feeling away, tried to tell myself that it was silly, that it was just my imagination. It wasn't. And that weekend, my darkest fears, the very worst parts of my imagination, would make a horrifying leap into reality. Chapter 23. 2 days passed, and the creature had not had a hearty, solid meal. His instinct kept him cautious, and he'd had to settle for small scraps of food here and there, things he'd been able to scrounge, easy things he hadn't had to hunt. His hunger had grown to monstrous proportions, and would be satisfied only by a nice, large, filling meal. It was early evening. In the past couple of days, he'd stretched his territory. He'd spent time skirting the golf course before traveling north and skulking the shadows of several resorts near Scott Bay. One time he came close to being spotted by a man in the woods carrying a large firearm. Even at a distance he could smell the danger, the metal and gunpowder of a recent discharge, and he knew best to stay far, far away. Now as he looped his way back, he spotted yet another human, a woman, and a small dog, alone on a desolate stretch of East Channel Road. He sniffed the air and took in the scent of the woman and the little dog. Nothing else. No noisy machines were in sight. None could be heard or smelled. A blob of drool formed on his lips, and Dogman, hiding in the shadows of the forest, began to follow.